When the clock slips past midnight and the world exhales into silence, something ancient begins to stir. The dead of night is not just an hour on a clock. It is a place the mind goes when the lights are off and there is nowhere left to hide. Streets empty, rooms grow heavier, and every sound feels intentional, like the darkness itself is listening. Tonight, these true stories emerge from those hours when sleep refuses to come and fear feels closer than breath. They are not told merely to scare you, but to remind you that the night does not belong to monsters alone. It belongs to the survivors, to the ones who endure trembling, to the ones who discover often too late, often in terror that strength is born when there is nowhere left to run. In these stories, fear will walk beside you, but so will courage. And somewhere between the shadows you may recognize pieces of your own life staring back at you. There is a particular kind of fear that only appears when you are alone. Not the sudden fear of danger, but the slow, creeping awareness that no one is coming to save you. A night security guard once described it as the moment the building stopped feeling empty and started feeling aware. His job was simple: sit, watch monitors, walk the floors of an abandoned textile factory until sunrise. During the day it was harmless, dusty, lifeless, but after 2 a.m., every shift changed. Footsteps echoed above him though the cameras showed nothing. The sound wasn't rushed, it was patient, as if whatever walked there knew it had all night. Other guards quit quickly, refusing to return. He stayed, not because he was brave, but because he needed the money and told himself fear was just imagination. One night, the footsteps stopped directly overhead. Silence pressed against his ears until it rang. Then something began to drag across the floor, slow and deliberate, as if announcing itself. His body locked. He could feel his heartbeat in his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to run into the night and never look back. Instead, shaking, barely able to breathe, he whispered a prayer he hadn't said in years and stood up. Each step toward the staircase felt like surrendering to death. When he reached the upper floor, flashlight trembling, there was nothing. No marks, no shadows, no sound. The footsteps never returned after that night. He finished his contract and left, but what stayed with him wasn't fear, it was the realization that the darkest moment of his life had also revealed the strongest version of himself. Fear had been loud, relentless, convincing, but the moment he moved toward it, fear lost its voice. That same kind of fear visits people far from abandoned factories. It arrives in bedrooms at 3 a.m., in hospital waiting rooms, in moments when your phone stays silent and your thoughts refuse to rest. It's the fear of being alone with your own mind, with regrets you never spoke out loud, with grief you pretended you were over. The dead of night strips away distractions and leaves you exposed. Yet again and again, survival stories reveal the same truth. Fear thrives when you stand still. Strength reveals itself only when you move. Even if every part of you is shaking, you don't need to feel fearless. You only need to take one step forward. Many people survive the night, not because the threat disappears, but because they discover something inside themselves that refuses to surrender. On a long rural highway, a woman once found herself driving home long after midnight. The road was empty, surrounded by fields that seemed endless. After nearly an hour, she noticed headlights behind her. They stayed at a distance, never passing, never falling back. Every turn she made, they followed. Her hands tightened on the wheel as her imagination raced ahead of reality. She imagined being attacked, chased, harmed, with no one around to hear her scream. When she finally reached a brightly lit gas station, the car behind her suddenly sped away. Shaking, she went inside and called the police. The next morning, officers explained something that turned her fear inside out. The driver hadn't been stalking her. He had noticed something she couldn't see: a figure rising from her backseat every time she slowed down. The other driver followed her, flashing lights and staying close, trying to scare off the man hiding behind her. Darkness had distorted the truth, making a protector look like a threat. That night taught her a lesson she never forgot. Fear doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it's a warning. Sometimes what terrifies you is the very thing trying to save you. Late at night, the mind becomes a storyteller, but not always an honest one. A man staying alone in his childhood home after his parents' deaths began hearing his name whispered in the early hours of morning. The voice sounded gentle, familiar, like his mother calling him from another room. At first, he dismissed it as exhaustion, but the whispers continued, night after night, always when the house was silent. He searched the rooms, checked recordings, even had the house inspected. Nothing explained it. Only later, after breaking down in tears one night, did he realize the whispers came on nights he avoided thinking about his parents, nights he buried his grief beneath distraction. Once he allowed himself to mourn, to sit in the pain instead of running from it. The whispers stopped. The night had been holding his trauma up to his face, forcing him to acknowledge what daylight let him ignore. Silence, he learned, is where unresolved pain learns to speak. In a small village during a winter blackout, a family sat huddled together as the power died and darkness swallowed the house. Just after midnight, a knock echoed through the silence. Slow, heavy. Then another. The knocks continued for hours, never aggressive, never hurried, as if whoever stood outside knew they would eventually give in. The father held the door shut while the mother whispered prayers with the children pressed against her chest. They didn't scream. They didn't answer. They waited. When sunrise finally came, the knocking stopped. Outside, there were no footprints in the snow, no signs anyone had ever been there. Whether it was something supernatural or something far more human, the lesson remained the same. Faith didn't remove their fear, but it gave them something stronger to cling to while fear tried to break them. In the dead of night, belief becomes a lifeline. Not all horror stories involve ghosts or shadows. Some involve the terrifying realization that evil can breathe, think, and stand inches away from you. Her mind screamed, but her body went still. Somehow, she remembered advice she had once heard: to remain calm, to speak softly, to humanize yourself. She asked him if he was lost. She told him he didn't need to do this. She spoke as if fear wasn't consuming her from the inside out. Minutes later, police arrived after a neighbor heard something wrong. She survived not because she was stronger than him, but because her mind stayed present when terror begged her to panic. That night proved that resilience doesn't always look like fighting back. Sometimes it looks like staying calm when everything inside you wants to collapse. Intuition has a way of waking us up when logic sleeps. A nurse working the night shift once felt an overwhelming urge to check on a patient who had shown no signs of distress. There was no alarm, no medical reason, just a feeling that wouldn't go away. She listened to it. Minutes later, she found the patient moments from cardiac arrest. That quiet voice saved a life. In the stillness of night, intuition becomes louder, clearer. We are often taught to ignore it, to call it anxiety or imagination. But survival stories repeat the same truth. Your instincts exist for a reason. They don't shout, they whisper, especially after midnight. A hiker once became lost in the woods after sunset, his phone dead, his map useless. Panic set in as the forest transformed into a maze of black shapes and unfamiliar sounds. Hours passed. Exhaustion blurred his thoughts. Then he heard something stranger, low humming sound drifting through the trees. It made no sense, but it felt steady, intentional. Later, authorities told him no one had been searching that area, and no machines or people had been nearby. Whether the sound was real or a manifestation of his will to survive, the result was the same. In the night, when logic fails, courage often appears disguised as something unexplainable. Perhaps the most haunting truth of the dead of night is that it eventually ends. A kidnapping survivor once said the most terrifying moment wasn't he being taken, it was the silence before sunrise, when she didn't know if she would live to see morning. Time stretched. Fear hollowed her out. Hope flickered weakly. And yet, morning came. She survived. The night did not win. No matter how endless darkness feels, it has never defeated the sun. Every survivor carries proof that endurance is possible, even when hope feels fragile. The dead of night has claimed many tears, many prayers whispered into pillows, many moments when people believed they could not go on. But it has also shaped the strongest souls, forged resilience in trembling hearts, and revealed courage in those who never thought they had any. If you are listening to these stories in the quiet hours, know that your fear does not define you. May peace find you when shadows stretch long. May courage rise when your thoughts grow heavy, and may you feel protected in every dark hour, washed over as you breathe through the fear until light returns and reminds you that even in the dead of night, strength is closer than you think. carrying you forward into whatever comes next, and whatever survives the night, with you still standing, still breathing, still believing that dawn will find you no matter how deep the darkness feels, and that every terrifying night you endure becomes another story you survived, another proof that fear did not finish you, another moment where your soul refused to give up, and chose instead to wait, to pray, to endure, to trust that beyond the shadows, there is light moving closer, slowly, patiently, just like you are, step by step, through the dead of night.